The malice and harm they harbor inside them inevitably reveal themselves through the smallest gestures, if only you know how to look. And the scariest thing? These evil people don't always lurk in dark alleys or places you'd instinctively avoid. Sometimes, they exist in the very places you feel safest: schools, churches, spiritual communities, or even inside the homes of those you trust the most. In Stoic philosophy, we are encouraged to understand human nature and confront everything in life with calmness and reason. Yet, when it comes to evil, it's often easier to recognize it than to define it. An evil person rarely declares their cruelty openly, but the harm they carry within them will inevitably surface, no matter how hard they try to hide it. When you come face to face with true evil, your heart will sense it before your mind has a chance to logically process what's happening. In those moments, any explanations or excuses become meaningless. That uneasy feeling, have you ever experienced it yourself? What makes this more dangerous is that evil people don't always appear as strangers or obvious villains. Often, they are people you see daily, those you've welcomed into your circle of trust. It's devastating to realize that malevolence can exist right within the communities we rely on. In places of worship, or even within the homes of close friends. Their true nature is usually concealed by an ordinary, even likable, exterior, making them difficult to detect until it's too late. Understanding evil isn't an easy task. You can't simply label it as immoral or cruel, because those words mean different things to different people. But one thing is certain: when evil realizes you've seen through it, it responds in remarkably predictable ways. In this video, we're going to explore 7 behaviors that evil people display when they realize you've uncovered the truth about them. Through the lens of Stoic philosophy, we'll analyze these signs to help you recognize them and prepare yourself to face them with composure and strength. And the first sign? They'll come back with a brand new reputation. If you've ever looked at someone and thought, they must be possessed by some dark force, you were probably mistaken. The reality is far worse. Humans themselves can be much more sinister than we imagine. Some are so adept at hiding their true nature that it can take years before anyone notices the malice they've been concealing. But don't blame yourself. Evil people are masters of manipulation. They'll shamelessly exploit those around them to achieve their own ends, hoarding what they want and leaving behind a trail of broken, disillusioned souls. You might casually dismiss them as merely bad people, but they're far more than that. They are living embodiments of deceit and cruelty. These individuals don't rely on petty tricks to get what they want. They are cunning and strategic in controlling how others perceive them. And when they realize you've finally uncovered their true nature, their first instinct isn't to admit their wrongdoings. No, they immediately start working to change your perception of them. They know the power of reputation and social influence. So they craft a newer, more sophisticated version of themselves. Imagine knowing someone with a terrible reputation in your community. Someone who has hurt countless people. The moment they realize you've seen through them, instead of avoiding you, they'll approach you with an entirely new story. They'll deny everything you know about their past, sometimes blaming circumstances or shifting responsibility onto others, making the narrative so complicated you can barely untangle it. It's like watching a perfectly staged play, where they cast themselves as the misunderstood victim desperate for sympathy and forgiveness. As Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Evil people understand this well. If they can change your thoughts about them, they can control how you treat them, and even how you perceive the truth. Their attempt to rebuild their reputation is nothing more than a tactic to dodge accountability and continue exerting their harmful influence without being exposed. You'll see this both in workplaces and personal relationships. And when it happens, will you be sharp enough to notice it? Picking up where we left off. When an evil person realizes you've seen through their disguise, their first move is to quickly rebuild their image, putting on a new mask. But it doesn't stop there. The next phase of their manipulation is far more unsettling, strange signals that you can sense, even if you can't explain them. Maybe you've worked with a colleague notorious for backstabbing and deceit, but the moment they realize you know the truth, they immediately switch their approach. Suddenly, they start confiding in you about their hardships, how life has changed them, and how they've become a different person. It sounds convincing, but it's nothing more than a thin veil hiding their true nature, a carefully woven story meant to make you doubt your own judgment. And that's where the real danger lies. Evil people don't just defend their image, they want you to feel like you are wrong about them. When they introduce a new story, a new reputation, it isn't the truth, it's a trap, designed to lure you into confusion, making you question yourself. Gradually, your initial confidence erodes, and before you know it, you might find yourself caught in their web, believing the fictional narrative they've skillfully crafted. This doesn't just cloud your mind, it weakens your ability to judge and resist. In these moments, Stoic philosophy reminds us to keep a clear mind, focus on truth, and avoid being led astray by fleeting emotions. Remember, when someone suddenly reinvents themselves, it's rarely a sign of genuine change. More often, it's a sophisticated tactic to continue their manipulative game. And that's only the beginning. Because once their lies are threatened, their next instinct is to emit strange signals, the kind you can't see but can definitely feel. It's those unsettling sensations that creep in when you're around them. Even if nothing specific happens, you can sense something's off. It's like a shift in the atmosphere, a tension you can't quite name. Have you ever experienced that? Like the air in the room suddenly turns heavy, or an inexplicable chill runs down your spine for no clear reason. Stoic philosophy believes everything around us is energy. Emotions, events, and people all carry their own frequency. When you face someone with malicious intent, those negative vibrations become even more noticeable, especially when they know you've uncovered the truth. The energy they radiate changes instantly. Gone is the friendly facade, replaced by a heavy, oppressive presence, as if they're trying to regain control or intimidate you. Not only that, they may begin invading your boundaries, asking unnecessary questions, snooping into your personal matters, or keeping a closer than necessary watch on you. It's a desperate move rooted in fear, an attempt to reclaim control. But here's the key: don't let these feelings shake you. The philosopher Epictetus once said, "People are not disturbed by things, but by the view they take of them." Those strange vibrations you sense aren't random. They're your intuition signaling that you're standing before someone toxic. And when you notice it, don't get angry, and don't panic. Stay calm, observe carefully, and use that clarity as your armor. Ask yourself, do these strange feelings and unsettling vibes truly have the power to harm you? Or are they merely a test of your inner resilience? Malicious people will do everything they can to manipulate the situation, but you are the one who decides how to perceive and respond to it. Because in the end, everything that happens outside of us is simply raw material for the refinement of our inner world. And those are only the first two signs. So what's the third behavior that evil people reveal when their lies are exposed? Let's uncover that in the next chapter. In the previous part, we talked about those strange, unsettling vibes you sometimes pick up from toxic people, those moments when you can't quite explain what's wrong. But deep down, you know something isn't right. And when those signals appear, the most important thing you can do is stay calm, keep a clear mind, and not let yourself get pulled into their game. In any situation, strengthening your inner peace and keeping your mind steady and undisturbed is the key to overcoming any challenge. Have you ever experienced something like this? When someone gave you those weird, negative vibrations and made your life unnecessarily difficult? How did you deal with those feelings? If you have, feel free to drop a comment and share your experience. Who knows, your story might be the exact thing someone else needs to hear to handle a similar situation. Now, let's move on to sign number 3, one of the clearest signs of a toxic person: they lie to cover up their previous lies. A lie is like an intricate web. The more lies someone spins, the more tangled the web becomes, and eventually, even the one who created it gets trapped inside. Every time they tell another lie, it's like adding a new thread, making the situation even more complicated. And instead of trying to untangle their mess when the truth starts to come out, toxic people tend to weave even more deceitful stories, desperately hoping to bury the evidence. As the great Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." When someone keeps defending their lies, they lock themselves into a vicious cycle of deception and ignorance, losing sight of the truth altogether. The reality is, we all encounter lies in our daily lives. Sometimes, we even tell small, harmless lies ourselves. According to research, the average person lies 1 to 2 times a day. These are often minor things, like complimenting a friend's new haircut even if you don't love it, just to spare their feelings. In fact, one study revealed that 59% of adults lie at least once, and up to 5 times a day. Interestingly, men tend to lie more often than women. But here's the thing, not all lies are created equal. What sets toxic people apart is the nature and intent of their lies. While ordinary lies might aim to protect others' emotions or maintain social harmony, toxic individuals lie purely to protect themselves, to cover up their wrongdoings, and to avoid facing the consequences of their actions. When caught, they don't stop. Instead, they build more lies upon the first one, creating an endless loop of deception. Each new story is nothing more than a desperate attempt to cover up something that can no longer be hidden. This behavior doesn't just reflect dishonesty, it also reveals a fearful, weak mindset incapable of facing the truth. These individuals betray not only those who trusted them but also themselves. Deep down, they're aware that every new lie only drags them further away from reality and deeper into their own falsehood. The result? Broken trust, shattered relationships, and a betrayal that's almost impossible to forgive. The worst part is, for toxic people, breaking trust isn't an accident, it's a strategy, a calculated move to protect their own interests, no matter how it affects others. Such actions aren't just morally wrong, they're also a clear sign of irresponsibility and a complete lack of respect for other people's feelings. For these individuals, truth isn't something to be valued. It's merely a tool they bend, twist, and manipulate to serve their personal agenda. And once trust is lost, rebuilding it is nearly impossible. And that was only the third sign. So what's next? What's the fourth sign toxic people reveal when they realize you've uncovered their true nature? Let's dive into that in the next part. In the previous part, we uncovered how toxic people weave endless lies to protect themselves and cover up their wrongdoings. They create a web so tangled that, eventually, even they can't escape it. Now, once you begin to see their true nature for what it is, you'll notice another unmistakable sign, one that reveals just how opportunistic they truly are. Sign number 4, they only show up when there's something to gain. When dealing with toxic individuals, the truth inevitably comes to light, and as soon as their real face is exposed, Their behavior changes dramatically, no longer pretending to be caring companions. They'll only seek you out when they want something, disappearing without a trace the moment you might actually need them. Before their mask slips, they often appear to be reliable, trustworthy allies. They're present when it's convenient, showing what seems like genuine concern and loyalty. You might even find yourself thinking, "Wow, this person really has my back." But as soon as you begin to sense the darker side of their character, everything shifts. They start acting just like opportunists. In life, people like this never invest sincerely in relationships. Every interaction is a calculated move, a mental checklist of what they might gain from you. And when there's nothing left for them to take, they disappear without hesitation, showing no care for your feelings or your needs. What's worse, once you've picked yourself up after a tough time, without their help, of course, they often crawl back into your life. They return with apologies, excuses, and empty words, hoping you'll be kind enough to let them back in. They exploit your forgiving nature, acting as if nothing ever happened. But the moment you deny them or stop being useful, they vanish again, only to reappear when they need something else. The truth is, people like this never truly change. They don't care about you as a person, they only care about what you can offer them. This pattern is as old as time itself. A perfect example of this comes from the story of the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. As a teacher of self-control and patience, Epictetus had many students who admired his wisdom. Among them was one student who seemed especially loyal, always present whenever he needed advice or personal guidance. But when Epictetus himself faced a difficult situation, an important test of character where he hoped his student would stand by him, that loyal student disappeared. Only after the hardship had passed and Epictetus had overcome it alone did the student return, full of excuses, pretending as though his absence had been unavoidable or insignificant. But Epictetus, with his clear wisdom, saw right through the act. He realized this student never truly cared, but only sought him out when there was something to gain. And as always, he chose not to let those meaningless apologies disturb his inner peace. From this, we learn a valuable lesson. It's essential to recognize when our kindness is being taken advantage of. Stoic philosophy teaches us to protect our inner peace, to avoid letting the selfish and manipulative actions of others disrupt our mental and emotional well-being. A wise person knows when to draw the line. Rather than feeling hurt by their absence, see it as a precious opportunity to free yourself from unhealthy, one-sided relationships. Remember the wise words of Marcus Aurelius: waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Stay true to your values, no matter how others behave. And speaking of toxic tactics, wait until you hear the fifth sign, one that reveals even more about how they manipulate people around them. Let's uncover that in the next part. In the last part, we uncovered how toxic people only reappear in your life when there's something for them to gain. And once you begin to recognize this, their absence surprisingly becomes a blessing in disguise. You see, as their true nature surfaces, these people will start showing up less and less. But here's the truth: you don't need to feel regret, sadness, or anger about their absence. In fact, their fading presence is a precious gift. It grants you the space and freedom to invest in more meaningful, sincere, and nourishing relationships. No one can exploit your kindness forever if you protect yourself with wisdom, self-awareness, and clarity. Instead of endlessly forgiving and welcoming these opportunistic individuals back into your life, shift your focus toward building connections with people who offer genuine support, empathy, and long-term growth. Life is too short to waste time on those who don't value your worth. And how about you? Have you ever dealt with people who only come around when they need something? Take a moment to reflect on it. If you have, feel free to share your story, and let us know how you handled them. Now, let's move to sign number 5. They try to make you feel stupid. This is one of the most classic, cruel tactics that narcissists and malicious individuals rely on. It's how they subtly break down your confidence and gain control. Their goal? To chip away at your self-worth until you start doubting your abilities, your instincts, and even your value as a person. Imagine this: you open your heart, sharing a worry or mistake with someone you trust. You hope for a little empathy, a kind word, or at least a listening ear. But instead, they respond with something like, "Oh, you should have seen that coming," or "Why would you even do that?" On the surface, these might sound like harmless comments. But inside, those words hit like a heavy stone, making you feel ashamed, foolish, and painfully small. And in that moment, whether you realize it or not, they've succeeded. They've made you question yourself. They've isolated you in your own mind. And they've positioned themselves in a place of control. This is how these manipulative people operate. It's not just casual teasing or thoughtless remarks. It's a calculated move. The most dangerous part is that once you start doubting yourself, you naturally become more vulnerable, and you might even turn back to the very person who made you feel this way, seeking their validation. Why? Because when you feel lost or unsure, it's instinctive to look for reassurance. And for them, this is exactly the trap they wanted you to fall into. They don't do this because they value your relationship or care about your growth. No, they do it because keeping you insecure ensures you stay under their influence. So, how would Stoic philosophy, with its emphasis on reason and self-mastery, approach a situation like this? A true Stoic wouldn't let themselves be pulled into this petty mental game. Instead, they would calmly remind themselves that their value is not determined by someone else's careless words. It comes from within, from their integrity, self-respect, and clarity of character. A Stoic might pause and ask, "Why should I allow the thoughtless remarks of someone lacking kindness to disturb my peace?" Rather than reacting with hurt, anger, or defensiveness, they would observe the situation with cool detachment, like a neutral witness watching a storm from a safe distance. That calm, unshakable demeanor? It's the most powerful shield you can have against the toxicity of others. Malicious people may try to belittle you, but they can only succeed if you accept and internalize their words. The wisdom of Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, and no matter what anyone says or does, we always have control over how we respond. Their tactic of making you feel stupid isn't just a way to punish you, it's a tool to distance you from your confidence and inner strength. Because once you start believing you're not good enough, you're far more likely to rely on them for approval and guidance. But this dependency is a trap that only strips away your freedom and real happiness. And speaking of tactics, wait until you hear what comes next. In the following part, we'll expose another sign, one that reveals how toxic people twist reality itself to suit their agenda. Stay tuned. Subtle tactics that Mali individuals use once they know you have recognized their nature is making you feel stupid, but Stoic philosophy teaches us that our worth is not dependent on what others think or say, but on how we face the world. Remember, you cannot control others' actions, but you can fully control how you react and think. That is the key to maintaining your inner strength even when faced with those who try to bring you down. Sign number 6. They act like they don't know what they are. Have you ever wondered how you can Recognize someone who is deliberately hiding their true nature. This is an important question because in life not everyone around us is always clear about who they truly are. When a bad person is exposed, they often choose a cunning strategy to cope, pretending they have no idea about the consequences their actions have caused. They play the victim or act naive, expressing surprise at what has happened as if they were entirely unaware of the harm they've inflicted on others. According to Stoic philosophy, a person's nature is judged not only by their actions but also by how they react when placed in difficult situations. Epicurus, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, once said people are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. In this case, bad people exploit the interpretation and emotions of others, turning their wrongdoings into a psychological game full of deceit. When exposed, these individuals often act as if they were unaware that their actions caused harm. This is not merely an avoidance of responsibility, but a form of manipulation. They create a false pretense to make you doubt your own feelings and experiences. For example, they might sarcastically ask, "Why didn't you say earlier that you were hurt?" This is their way of shifting the blame onto you, even though it's clear they were the ones at fault. When confronted with such behavior, you may feel confused and angry. These bad individuals not only deny responsibility, but also try to erase the truth that you courageously confronted. Even if you've expressed your feelings directly multiple times, they will continue to ask, "Why didn't you tell me?" This constant repetition serves not just to avoid responsibility but also to diminish your worth and emit irons, making you feel like you're overreacting or that the blame is not entirely on them. This is how bad people try to control your emotions and thoughts. They want you to feel wrong or at the very least unsure about whether you have the right to judge them. This is an extremely toxic and sophisticated form of manipulation where the truth is distorted in a way that makes you feel guilty. Why? For being hurt. Stoic philosophy emphasizes the importance of maintaining a strong spirit in such situations. The actions and words of bad people are things we cannot control, but we can control how we respond when faced with situations where others deliberately hide or deny their mistakes. It is essential to stay calm and not let them affect your sense of self-worth. When bad people realize that you've seen through them, they will often do everything they can to avoid the truth. They are unwilling to take responsibility because doing so means facing the consequences of their harmful actions. Instead of honestly admitting their mistakes, they will play the role of the innocent, trying to justify that they didn't know their behavior caused harm. And when you confront them, they will try to twist and distort the truth to make you feel confused and unsure about your own experience. Such behavior is not only deceitful but also a sign of deep disrespect for you, a denial of the truth and a devaluation of your emotions. These bad people know that once you start doubting yourself, they can continue acting without worrying about the consequences. In facing this situation, the lesson from Stoic philosophy is invaluable. You don't need to change yourself or try to please such people. What's important is that you hold firm to your values and your belief in what is right. Don't let them make you doubt the truth. Self-control and steadfastness in spirit are what will help you overcome the challenges they pose. Sign number 7. They try to manipulate you. If someone is manipulating you, they are trying to control how you act and strip away your ability to think. In the previous part, we talked about how toxic people pretend not to know what's happening to avoid responsibility. Then turn the situation around to make you doubt yourself. But it doesn't stop there. They also possess a far more dangerous tactic: emotional manipulation. Sign number 7. They try to manipulate you. What makes this type of person so dangerous is that they don't just damage your relationship with them. Their influence can quietly destroy your relationships with others and directly affect your mental health and emotional well-being. Manipulation is a subtle form of intrusion. It doesn't always appear as blatant lies or obvious deceit. In fact, it's often cleverly disguised behind a mask of kindness, care, and seemingly good intentions. Manipulative people are masters of emotional tactics. They use subtle psychological tricks to place you in a vulnerable position, making it easier for them to gain control, not just over your thoughts, but over your will and your actions. What makes them so dangerous is that they often possess a high level of emotional intelligence. But instead of using it to build positive, healthy connections, they treat it like a psychological weapon, reading your emotions and thoughts with alarming accuracy, and then exploiting your weaknesses. Those weaknesses could be hidden fears you rarely talk about, lingering insecurities, or personal goals you pursue with your whole heart. And it's precisely through these soft spots that a manipulator gradually persuades you to give up what truly matters, slowly making you dependent on them. The tricky thing about manipulation is that it isn't always easy to detect. It can take many different forms, sometimes even through ACTs that appear generous and supportive. You might encounter someone who's always ready to listen, understand, and show deep concern for your feelings. But if their intention isn't to genuinely help you, and instead, they aim to gain something for themselves, then those ACTs become nothing more than a sophisticated manipulation tactic. This kind of help makes you feel indebted. It makes you start believing that they're the only person you can trust and rely on. And before you realize it, you've already fallen under their control. When dealing with a manipulative person like this, it's crucial to establish firm, clear boundaries, and more importantly, to uphold them consistently. Boundaries are not just a shield against manipulation, but a way to preserve your core values and protect your personal freedom. This means being deeply self-aware, recognizing your limits, and refusing to let anyone violate them. However, manipulators with high emotional intelligence know exactly how to test those limits. They'll try to convince you that compromising a little is harmless, that relying on them will make you feel safer or happier. But according to Stoic philosophy, true happiness never comes from external sources. It comes from mastering your own mind. The moment you let someone manipulate you, you're essentially giving up your freedom and handing them the power to control your life, something no Stoic philosopher would ever accept, as it violates the principle of living independently and freely. One common tactic manipulators use is making you believe you're incapable of handling problems on your own, that only they understand you, and only they can help you. But once you fall into that trap, you'll gradually lose the ability to make decisions for yourself, lose your independence, and lose confidence in your own judgment. Manipulators will continue exploiting you until you completely lose your sense of autonomy, becoming nothing more than a pawn in their power game. Escaping this kind of situation isn't easy, but it's far from impossible. Always remember, manipulators won't give up easily. They'll keep finding ways to tighten their grip, using every trick in the book to make you doubt your abilities, your decisions, and your worth. What truly matters is that you keep affirming your value, stand firm on the boundaries you've drawn, and never allow anyone to cross them. You can't control how others behave, but you can always control how you respond. And that is your real strength, a power no one can take away unless you allow them to. And with that, we've now covered the 7 common signs toxic people show when they realize you've uncovered their true nature. By recognizing these signs, you'll better understand the hidden intentions behind their seemingly kind actions and know how to protect yourself from their negative influence. Stoic philosophy reminds us that calmness and self-mastery in any situation are the keys to overcoming challenges. No one can truly harm us if we learn how to guard our minds and remain steady. Before we wrap up, I have a question for you. How do you feel about the content of this video? Choose your answer. 1. Strongly disagree. 2. Disagree. 3. Neutral. 4. Agree. 5. Strongly agree. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our upcoming content. And be sure to check out the latest videos displayed on your screen. You might just find something valuable for yourself there.